session. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Karolina Głowacka. I work for Talk FM, a radio station. As always, during conferences, after the coffee break, we are short of time, but we want to start the discussion on social media. Is it the social media? Petra Panes, let me introduce the panelists from Medienanstalten in Berlin. Welcome to our debate, Anna Rywczyńska, that you already perfectly know. She is the coordinator of the Polish Center of the Safer Internet program. Madam Weronika Samara, the expert on the digital competences and online security. She's been for years already involved in the program, Safer Internet program, and John Carr that you've already met. Let me add one UK Council Institute, Child Safety, which is the institution that brings together organizations working for the child safety online. Jakub Wonto, who is with us, who is a journalist, who is the deputy editor of WP Technologies, and he's been working for, he's writing about technologies and technology-related topics. We decided to have 3 rounds: difficulties and problems, then the positive aspects of social media, and the third part about the responsibility, who is responsible for the social media and everything that happens there. I want to start with Weronika Samara. The question is whether children and young people are aware of where the internet content comes from. Are they critical vis-a-vis things that they see online? And whether they think really about the things they want to post and share. This content that we produce, the content that we read. We've had, for instance, the presentation on sexting. How do they perceive them? How can they assess it? What can you say about this?
Microphone. Hello, everybody. It's nice to be here again. I would like to answer today's questions, my questions, through the eyes of the European youngsters, actually, as I have the privilege to be coordinating the European Council for Digital Good, which is a council created by 15 youngsters from 7 European countries at the moment. And this council has as a goal to empower youngsters to share their opinion how we can create a better and safer and healthier internet environment. I will also share the opinions and feedback from European youngsters again through our Have Your Say campaign. And many of you, I hope, have seen this report that was in your bags. And if it's not in your bags, there are some reports out there. It's a fantastic report. It's done by youngsters themselves from 9 European countries. And this Have Your Say campaign has a goal to allow the kids to share their ideas, opinions, and expectations, also their concerns about the internet. They were never asked about the GDPR, the youngsters. Nobody asked them if it's okay that now the age is 16 or 15 or 14. They were not there. So we asked them, and they gave us some very interesting answers. So to your first part of your question, I will split it in 2. Are children and youth aware of the source of social media content? Are they critical about the content they see there? The answer is yes and no. There are many children still that believe that everything that's written online is only written by professionals or experts. So they really think that everything you read online is true. We have asked kids if everything that is on Wikipedia is true. And it's not always true, because I can go on Wikipedia and change an article, pretend I'm an expert. Of course, somebody is behind, and they will see I'm not, and they will change it back. But there are still many kids thinking about it. On the other hand, there are many, many children and youngsters who understand, like in the offline world, you don't know who's behind the mask. So in the online world, you cannot know who is writing things when you don't know him offline world, and you don't know if he's professional or an expert. They also say that they know there are many fake news out there, and they try to spot and report this fake news, or at least ask somebody to help them for this fake news. Or if they see something that is weird online, to ask again for help, or at least cross-check it with other trustworthy sources. So critical thinking is a very, very important thing to develop from very young age, not to start at age 11 or 12 or 13. This is too late today. And the youngsters have the means to understand the how and the why. This is what the youngsters tell us. To your second part of the question, how we can build awareness so that they know that it is necessary to think twice before sharing the content, and especially before sending a photo via the internet. I will quote European youngsters on that. There is an illusion of security on the internet which makes us post things that we would not do or say in real life. If I were to do or say this in real life, would I say or do it? Is a question that people need to ask more often. This is what our youngsters say. So what do they propose? To explain that the picture usually never stays between two people. Regarding photos and videos, youngsters should learn that this is not the desirable way to get attention. And by doing that, you risk damaging yourself in the end. And to present children incidents, real incidents, of the consequences of sending private pictures online, such as cyberbullying could be, and not just presenting facts and rules. They also say the following: children that upload something on the internet should learn the consequences of their action in order to think again before they share information concerning their life with someone they don't know if he's trustworthy. In other words, education from very young age is the most significant factor to prevent children from being exposed online. Education, and this is what youngsters tell us. So I'll close the answer today, this answer to the question, by a great meme we received from Croatian youngsters in our Have Your Say campaign. The internet is like fire. It can be a good servant, but a bad master.
Dziękujemy bardzo. Do panią Petrę Fanes chciałabym zapytać o coś, co jest...
I would like to ask Petra Fanes the ritual question, something that as a list of threats, what bad, negative can happen to young children when they are online, what kind of threats can come from internet, and what harm can be done by the people that you know from real world, like colleagues that will share some private videos or images that we don't want to share. So we should make an update of the information that we have.
Asking me this interesting question, I would divide between or distinguish between two types of risks related to the role of social media and internet in kids' everyday lives. That is one relating to the communication aspect of the internet, which is very important, as we've also heard before this, and the other one to content. To the content risks, which is what I see in my everyday work, because I work for the Commission for the Protection of Minors in the Media in Germany, and we evaluate online content and we judge whether it's in line with the regulation that we have or not. And the first part would be cyberbullying, sexual harassment, stuff like this. We've heard earlier that there are young kids on the internet who post their profiles on Instagram, for instance. Then you get the comment sections where people can write anything about you, and there are comments ranging from, hey little slut, take off your top and let me see your tits, or other comments like, in the case of kids that are maybe not that attractive, hey fat cow, go kill yourself, you're so ugly. That is number one. And for the second part, the content risks, there are many, many risks. I mean, starting with pornography, porn clips that kids post on the internet. We had a case last year where a young couple had sex, actually. The girl was 14 years old. Her boyfriend was 17. They had sex in a changing cubicle at a department store. And the boy filmed it and put it online on YouTube. And of course, the lives of those kids were practically over because the clip went viral. It was on YouTube, it was on Instagram, Facebook, every platform you could possibly name. So everyone saw them at their most intimate moment, which was a disaster. And, media regulation authorities fought to keep the thing off the net or to get it deleted, which was a very hard task. So I would say a lot can happen. On the other side, internet should be fun. Kids should use it to communicate with their friends. So maybe, we should not make the devil of it. There's also much fun, but we have to make the internet a safe place online. And, I think this is the place to do by giving advice to teachers, to parents, educators.
Dziękuję bardzo za te interesujące.
Thanks so much for your perspective. And, well, you gave us a sad example, but actually we need to be aware of these cases as well. Over to Anna Rywczyńska. Please tell us about possible tools that we can get our hands on, that we can give or equip our children with to verify sources so that we cannot be easily manipulated or deceived. So the way I look at this is that young people are pretty aware of the notion of fake news and the phenomenon itself. As I've been talking to kids recently, we see that they are increasingly aware that there is fake news. But sometimes they underestimate the destructive power of fake news. So to them, fake news is more of a joke, something silly, rather than something having a true destructive power, something that could even threaten democracies all over the world. So on the one hand, they know fake news exists, but we need to talk about that, online you can buy not only goods, but you can buy and sell ideologies. Chris Pinton will talk about this a little bit after lunch, namely the deep fakes, where you can make some videos that actually, as if it had been made somewhere else by someone else, but actually make something else that never existed, make up something so no one would know whether it took place or not. So definitely we always have to tell them to verify who the author of the post was. And we have to tell them that social media is a carrier of news, but not a source. So, it just disseminates news, but it's not a source. So you have to check the author, who the author was of the text, of the images. Sometimes the images that are illustrating a certain article, like there's an article about the war in Africa, but actually photos accompanying the article were taken in Asia, right? And it can be checked. Also, we have to tell kids that all of us are living in this information bubble. Maybe sometimes it's nice to log on from a different device or someone else's device to see what you could see as another person. And so that maybe we should move away from this bubble, European or Polish bubble, and maybe go to some global news providers and agencies to confront what we're seeing in our social media. And
on the side of the kids, because if we look at what kids do, in German we have a term which is called prosumer, derived from the term producer and consumer, because young people are both at the same time and they use social media because it's interactive. So I think what we have to do today is to teach them maybe to use their creative skills in a good way. I mean, to teach them how to edit and shoot a movie clip. That's very creative. How to take a good selfie of yourself, as Stephanie pointed out. It's very hard. I've tried it and I've failed every time because I just can't seem to get this done. But young people, it's no problem to them. So I think the internet is helping us get that creativity out of kids. But at the same time, we have to make sure that the internet stays safe. So that's our challenge today.
Dziękuję bardzo. Thank you very much. Mam wrażenie, że to pytanie, które ma...
I'm getting this impression that the question I have to Veronica is going to build on what Petra just said. Namely, let's reverse some things, turn them around. How, not really how adults can help kids, but rather what can adults learn from those kids who are digital natives? Because it's the first time in history where our children, younger generations, know more about a certain realm of our lives than we do. Normally, knowledge was sort of cascading top down, and now it's a little bit different. So what can we learn from young people? Maintaining balance between our roles as a caregiver and a kid.
In our USA campaign, I will cite it again, and Poland was also part of this campaign. We received another fantastic meme from Cyprus where the kids tell to the parents, "Father, did you know that the internet has enormous potential?" So, yeah, we truly believe, not only me, the youngsters believe that they can definitely teach adults and parents how the internet works. And we shouldn't underestimate the children's ability to use the internet with critical mind. They can really do that. And I don't know any child who would not be just happy to teach something to his or her parents, just to become a mentor to the parents, when actually it's always the other way around. And when this is done, then the parents, not only we understand the power of the internet, what the internet can do, but they will sit with a child, understand what the child is doing online, the habits, the activities, understand and learn the online friends. This is very important to know if they have online friends, so friends they don't know in the real world, and also understand the potential dangers. So when they have to protect their kids, if need be, they will be there for the kid. And this will also boost the trust within the family. So the kids, when they face a situation where they're afraid or there's something that is really, really weird on the internet, they will turn to their parents. They will not be afraid that the internet will be shut down or they will be sanctioned. They will really turn to their parents and ask them to help. And not only that, if this relationship, this joint venture, I would say, will be developed, then the parents will be able also to set rules within the family and explain these rules. Why? Not only just say no. You have always to explain to the kids and the youngsters why you say a no and why and when you say yes. So it's really, really important that we allow the kids to teach the parents. And yes, the kids know more than the parents today. It's not so bad, but the parents have life experience. So the parents teach actually the kids how to behave in the offline world, if we can have today offline and online world, actually in our world, ethically and responsibly. So through this venture, they will teach their kids that they have to behave responsibly and ethically. So very important values also online.
Thank you very much. Do pana Kara mam takie pytanie.
I have a question to John. Maybe it might be a trick one, because there are some good things about using social media. There's a lot of pluses, good things. Everyone actually has an account on social media. So why is there an age limit, or the age limit, theoretically? Of course, we know that this limit is sometimes sort of circumvented, but is this important to have this age limit? And what to do to make sure people obey it? Or maybe we should just abandon this age limit, forget about it, because, well.
Under the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, which is the most important single international legal instrument in this field, it makes no mention of age other than 18. So anybody under the age of 18 is a child. But the important thing that is stressed in the convention is what the individual capacities of that individual child are. So it doesn't say you're allowed to read the newspapers when you're 12, or you're not allowed to do this when you're 11. It says you've got to look at each child as an individual and make a decision about what they understand, what they can deal with, what they can cope with. And that, of course, is what parents do typically with their own children. But actually, in the online world, that's simply not practical at the moment, at any rate, because for an internet company to know enough about an individual child to be able to tailor the service for their particular vulnerabilities or sensitivities, they would require a huge amount of extra information about that child. And that would be just too dangerous and kind of weird and spooky to be handing over to private companies. So you're right, age is tricky, but it happens everywhere. You know, I know some people who are 50 who shouldn't really be let out on their own. You know, they shouldn't be, they go to a pub and they drink too much, or you know, they act stupidly. So, but I know young people of 16 and 17 who are very mature and trustworthy. So wherever you draw a line, we're going to have to draw lines and recognize that on either side of it, there will be injustice done, or things won't work properly or as well as they could. But it's the only practical way of dealing with it in the internet age. One of the things that we are very, very keen on in Britain, for example, is on preventing young people accessing hardcore pornography over the internet. So our Parliament has passed a law which says, and it will become operative probably in December of this year, or it might be January, which says every publisher of pornography, commercial publisher of pornography into the United Kingdom, has to have an age verification mechanism in place. We already have it for gambling. We've had it for online gambling since 2005. Now we're introducing it for pornography, because what we've said is that by and large, young people under the age of 18 haven't got the emotional maturity or the life experience to be able to understand or cope with some of the images that you see on these hardcore pornographic sites. Now, it's very likely that some children around the age of 17 will be able to handle it, but you can't have a variable age limit like that with the internet space. Equally, as I said, there are probably some people aged 30 or 40 who shouldn't really be looking at stuff like that. So it's a compromise. I think in the end, we're going to see more of it, though, because the way the internet's working with the abuses of anonymity and the way people are getting to places they're not supposed to be, we're going to see more and more measures being introduced to identify people and verify their age. And I think it will be a good thing overall.
Jak zwykle nic nie jest takie proste, więc
Nothing is really simple, and there's plenty of ambiguity here, but we understand that. We understand why. There is a dichotomy in the title of our debate. Like, is it counsel or is it manipulator? Is it a substance that we abuse, or is it medicine? But actually, yes, but also it's a way for us to stay in touch, right? When someone is, I don't know, parents went away, or a kid went away, even though those relationships maybe cannot be so profound, but still. Anna, what can you tell us about this? When we talk about human relationships and technology as an in-betweener, this topic is a topic that's rife with all sorts of myths, all sorts of misconceptions. And it's hardly simple. As I talk to young people, as I talk to families, as a researcher, we did that research project, a study, a digital family. I was also involved in conducting interviews with families. And you know what I saw? Some families say the internet is great. It helps us. It supports us. It helps us build our relationships. There's nothing negative. And some families said, no, we completely lost touch with one another. Our kids are just locked in their rooms all the time, right? So there's different stories, right? And then after we have analyzed all the data and all the responses, and then we will see different patterns, how people use technology and what implications it has. But even human perception is different, because some kids say, thanks to my smartphone, I'm in touch with people. Like, for example, other kids tell me that, hey, we're going to go to the playground, we're going to be there at 15. And I learned that from my smartphone. Otherwise, I wouldn't be there playing with them in fresh air. On the other hand, we had this myth, like in the past, we used to have a TV set, we sat together around it, and it was, so a shared experience. But some people say a TV set was oppressive because the stronger one in the family controlled the content that we watched. And these days, we have plenty of devices, plenty of screens, and everyone can decide on their own. And there's more partnership in the family. So there you have it. Also, as we talked to adults in my study, they started remembering their childhood, and it was far from the idyllic image of everyone sitting at the table, smiling at one another and talking. No, they were sitting at the table, true. And TV was going on next to them. And they were silent, actually. Or someone was reading something. They were reading a newspaper. And these days, they would have a device, right? But still, they did. And also, a lot of them remembered that we never talked. Well, some people say, no, we talked all the time. Even if there was something on TV and TV was on, we were commenting together on what was going on. So it's all about spending time together rather than with or without devices. So if we feel like watching something, a video from an artist that is both liked by the father and the son, let's watch it over dinner. Let's comment on it, right? Also, there is another interesting perspective. We have this guy, Kacper, who is part of our consulting committee. And Kacper said, when we asked him, do you feel like you're addicted to the internet? Addicted, not, but maybe dependent, yes. We depend more and more on it, even if we're not addicted. And if these relationships were devoid or deprived of the internet, we would have to learn anew. Like, for example, you organize an event, you create a group, and you manage it through the messenger rather than calling people, like hundreds of people. And when we ask kids about social media, they said sometimes it's easy to send an emoticon or a wave through a messenger, then do the same, smile at someone or wave at someone in the school hall, because it sort of looks lame. Or, for example, think about the birthday reminder functionality on Facebook. It reminds you about other people's birthday. And if you turn it off, that functionality, you may forget your mother's birthday. So, we depend on it. We come to depend on it. We also come to depend on emoticons to identify someone's mood. There might be a crying face, there might be a smiley, there might be a whole array of different faces, and then we immediately know their mood. We recognize their mood. And sometimes, if kids even say that if someone messages them without an emoticon, it means reluctance or dislike, because there is no smiley at the end, right? So also, we had this conference where kids had a competition to come up with an idea for an app that they're missing, something that they would like to have, which is not there. And you know what? What won? What was the most voted or the most often proposed? What they missed? An app to tell me if someone loves me. Teenagers said that. An app to tell me whether he or she fancies me, he or she loves me. That's really deep, I'd say. Also, some people say kids are always online, they never communicate with one another, but, well, we, the grown-ups, might be to blame, because sometimes we live in a place that's remote from the school. They go to extra classes to yet another place, so they don't have their friends under their noses, because they're not neighbors anymore. But they're in touch online.
Anna Rybczyńska has mentioned already many positive aspects, and Jakub Wonto should build on that. I have a simple example. A few days ago, I talked to a professor, Ye Mielniak from Koźmiński University, and talking about the current days, he said there is a kind of legal collapse, and quite interesting statement. But this means that we are really more careful because of fake news, spam and trolls. People are really careful, more prudent, and they are more vigilant than the adults. And I noticed some situations like among my friends, my actually friend who actually shared a photo of a theft who was trying to steal something from a woman. There was also a statement: if you are trying to enter your PIN code from the backwards, actually the police will come. And that was a friend of mine who was 40. Who is 40 actually, and he believed that, you know, if you enter the PIN code backwards, the police officers actually will be able to come and find the offenders. And so you see, he did not get it completely, and young people have to explain to adults how it all works, and they are more critical than the young people are now getting more aware and more mature in terms of digital world. Now the last round, responsibility. Who is responsible for social media and what is happening there? Patrofanes, do you believe that public institutions should actually assume some of full responsibility of things that happen in social media? I know that in Germany you have the system of the obligatory self-regulation of the media business. Does this work?
And not only does it work, it's a big success story, actually, because this system was introduced for broadcasting and online content in 2003. Before that, we had a voluntary self-control system for the movie industry, but that was separate. And ever since 2003, which has been 15 years, it's worked very, very well, and up to the point where the European Commission has put this into their AVMS directive, which we all hope will enter into force sometime in the coming months. And they put down the recommendation for all member states to implement regulated self-regulation systems, as we say. And the idea behind that is simply that public institutions, like for instance our Commission, share the power over, evaluating media content with private institutions of voluntary self-control, where the producers, where broadcasters, where internet providers actually come together. They form an association of which they become members, who perform youth protection officer services for them. And so if we find content that is in breach of the law, we can actually, if that producer is a member of one of those institutions, we can go to that institution and talk to them. And then we won't initiate proceedings against the producer themselves. So there's a big incentive for companies to become members of such institutions, and many of them have become so. I know the FSM is here today. They're one of those institutions, and as I said, we're always in exchange with them. We try to make sure that we're all on the same level regarding the evaluation of online content, for instance, or broadcasting content. So yes, I would say there's a big yes from me to that question.
A więc pomysł na samoregulację.
So the idea of the self-regulation of media. That's one idea. And maybe I would address Weronika Samara. Maybe these are parents and teachers who should assume this responsibility. These are people who should be held liable for everything that children do online. Can we control it from the perspective of the adults and guardians? Is it possible? Shall we do it or not?
Okay, I will quote a 19th social century scientist, William Graham Sumner, on that. He said, "It used to be believed that the parent had unlimited claims on the child and rights over him. In a truer view of the matter, we are coming to see that the rights are on the side of the child and the duties on the side of the parent. So it's highly important that parents and teachers understand the rights of the children and protect them online. Our European youngsters say the following, I will quote again. Parents must communicate with us children, but give us freedom and protect our right to privacy. Parents and teachers need to guide us to act online so that we are not subject to any sort of threats. So this is the one part. Concerning control, how much we can control. Okay, I would say to the extent that the right of children to access the information society is not threatened, and definitely not to control them behind their back. Like installing a spy program that really spies on everything they do online without them knowing. This will definitely ruin any relationship within the family. Children have the right to explore the possibilities on the internet, and they have the right to be informed about dangers. And this is the role of the parents and educators. And we need to understand, I have heard this already in this session many times, that the children are actually the digital natives. We are the immigrants. Children cannot think how life was without internet and without a mobile phone in our pocket. It's unimaginable for them that we lived without the internet. Oh my God. So we have to understand that. And it's crucial that we have this good relationship and communication and trust between the family, because as I said before, then we can set rules, and these rules depend, of course, on the age of the kid and the personality of the kid. It cannot be horizontal. And these rules need to be discussed, accepted and followed. So we will also have to put consequences on not following the rules and to accept them as well. And rules that affect all of us have to be respected by all of us. For example, we cannot tell our kids that you cannot illegally download movies from the internet and the next day we proudly scream that, oh my God, I found the new James Bond last night and I downloaded it illegally. This cannot happen. We have to be role models for our kids.
Spójrzmy w takim razie, co o tym sądzą cyfrowi.
Let's have a look what Anna Rewczyńska can tell us about actually the digital natives. You talk to digital natives and their families. What did they tell you? What they said? How they imagine actually the social media in the context of the responsibility and powers? What solutions would they need? Well, young people told us they expect this responsibility to be assumed by adults, and they search for help there. This is a change that we see. A few years ago, they told us that in the online stressful situations, they would address their peers, whereas today they say in case of hate online, the young people told us they would go to the educators, teachers, and parents. So they already know that we are getting more and more ready to help them. That's a good news. Quite interesting. It's a bit of information that we got from the families when we organized the interviews. So when I visited families who enjoyed, all possible equipment, everyone was digitally native, and these people told us that the safety, the responsibility for the safety online is held by families, by the schools, and the families without such rich equipment, online equipment, told us that they assumed responsibility for the safety of their kids online. That's quite interesting as well. The youngsters themselves, on top of the fact that they expect adults to be aware, but they also have very tangible expectations. They said, for instance, they have a lot of expectations vis-a-vis providers. They don't like websites, self-like websites. The fact they hate when they can be added to some groups without their consent. They hate the fact that they can be blocked online, so they can see it. And they see there is a big problem to enter their history in media. They want to manage it. They want to see they want to have the control over the history but they say to get through the whole history is almost impossible, so they want to get it easier, and they do not know who can see the stuff they share and they post, and they would like to have control over this. And active chat, they say, if we get a service 24/7, then the chat online should be also available 24/7 to help us. And they also would like to have the opportunity to stop, to block the accounts themselves, because something happens, something post image they don't like, they can immediately respond. They don't want to ask always for help the administrators. They would prefer to have more powers over the accounts themselves. So, of course, not everyone told us that, but there is a big group of aware people, and that's great that we can really see it. That's very interesting conclusions. These are very interesting conclusions, very interesting, and quite details as well. Jakub, social media usually tell that our life is mission. We want to bring people together. Mark Zuckerberg, who says the mission of Facebook is to help you communicate. But okay, how the social media can earn? Let's understand it in the context of responsibility, because this responsibility is actually, about various interests like social media companies, the users. So how does this business work? Approximately 90% of the revenues of Facebook comes from commercials and ads. That's the whole answer here. So Facebook or Google, all the social media, a bit, Twitter maybe a bit less. They really want us to be there, to stay present and to tell them as much as possible about our profiles, that then they will be able to profile the ads even better. I was writing an article about removing your profile from Facebook and Google. So it took me 2 hours actually to understand how to make it on Facebook, and then another few hours to write an article on that. So it was a lengthy process. So they don't make it easy for us, and they do it purposefully, because they exactly know that if you close your account or if you remove part of your history, this means less money for them. They earn on data that they collect on us. In Facebook, it's over 90% of the income. In Google, approximately 60+% of their revenues. So this is the top priority for them. Whereas, building society, community, bringing people together, that's nonsense. Mark Zuckerberg recently posted, the information how great he is and how great business he's doing. He has to do it because this is his business, but basically these people actually earned money on us. Let's enter the international perspective, because the companies that we mentioned are international, global. We talked about responsibility of educators, parents, young people. John Kerry, what do you think about these aspects when you approach it from the European perspective? Because these are American companies who have Facebook or Google, but here we also have we have European Union, we have our legal system. So how you perceive the relations between the EU and these giant companies, these corporate businesses? Maybe EU should say, you have to help us. You have to help us, enable us actually to remove our accounts and modify history and so on and so forth.
I agree. And the European Union has done some fantastic stuff on combating the abuse of monopoly power on the part of some of these big companies, particularly Google. Initially it was Microsoft and now Facebook as well. So they have got power, and they're big enough to make the American companies pay attention. The American companies now earn more money in Europe than they do in America. And in the years ahead, they're going to be earning more money in Asia than they do in Europe. So you're right that this is increasingly an international challenge. But here's the thing. The European Union aside, international institutions by and large are very weak. And there's very little possibility for them to get their act together politically to agree on anything. I mean, imagine China, Russia, Iran, Poland, Britain, all sitting down and agreeing on almost anything. It's very hard to imagine. So I think each individual country has to make its own mind up about what is best for its citizens. And if a company is working in Poland, it should be conforming to Polish norms, Polish laws, and Polish standards. Ditto in the United Kingdom. We want British children to be protected, and we have our own funny ways of doing things. The Polish have their own funny ways of doing things. Every country does things a little bit differently, and these companies have to respect that. They would like to have one single service that they rolled out identically in every single country. That's the easiest thing for them and the cheapest thing for them. But that's not what's acceptable to us as citizens. And what we have to do is make sure our governments have got the self-confidence to force them to do it. Now, obviously, the European Union's got the most power. This is another reason why us leaving the European Union is so stupid. But they are conflicted, you know, to some degree, because the European Union want the American companies to invest more money in Europe. They want the American companies to create more jobs in Europe, more economic success in Europe. So there's a limit, I think, to how far they are actually willing to push them to behave better. And therefore it's our job as citizens to force them politically to change that. At the end of the day, the power is in our hands, not the institutions.
I to był jednocześnie głos podsumowujący. Pan John Carr, oklaski.
Thank you very much.